Hey, what's up, everyone? This is the podcast Jack of One Trade. I'm your host, Morgan Woodington, and I'm here today with my guest, Ayanna Tucker.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Morgan, for having me today. And I'm currently the president of Phi Theta Kappa at Thomas Nelson Community College, of course, because we're at Thomas Nelson. And I'm in my last semester at Thomas Nelson, and I'm majoring in social science, and I will soon be going to William Mary for my transfer. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm the host on the Meetup.
Yeah, woo woo. Okay, this is the first podcast of Jack of One Trade, and today I'm just going to talk about what this podcast is going to be. Ayanna's going to ask me a couple questions about it, and we'll just go over what you're going to see on this podcast and what you can look forward to. So, Ayanna, do you have any questions for me?
Well, first question, how did this podcast come to life? Like, what were you thinking in your mind when you came up with the title, Jack of One Trade?
That's a good question. So, you know the phrase, Jack of all trade, master of none. So what I was thinking is, this is a local talent type podcast. I'm looking for people that have all different sorts of talents to come on here and talk about their talent and even show their talent if they like to through the podcast, through a sound bit or something of that sort. So when I made the title, I was kind of going along with the theme of that sentence, Jack of all trades, master of none, but I wanted to change it up a little bit. So the idea of Jack of one trade is, if it was a whole line, a whole saying, that it would be Jack of one trade, master of some. So as college students, I think that we're good at a lot of stuff, but there's some things that we're just better at than others, and it's that thing that I want you to bring onto the podcast. Speaking to the viewers here, if you're really good at playing the violin, or you're good at playing the guitar or poetry, or you like to do some creative writing in your free time, that's your trade, that's your one trade that I want you to bring onto the podcast and talk about. If you got other talents, you're welcome to come show those as well.
Okay, Morgan. I actually like that, Jack of one trade, and I like how you put that scenario with the title, because, like, as students, we all become masters of something. Like, we go to school, become a master in that specific category that we study or whatever we want to achieve in the future. And even if we don't go along with that degree that we pursued, maybe we find something else that we like. And overall, while we're in school, we start to develop new skills and stuff that actually becomes unique to us. Even in the COVID right now, most people may find different talents that they didn't know they had before COVID because they didn't have as much time. And maybe now you may still be busy in the COVID, but people, when we did have that little downtime when everything got locked down, people maybe found out that they can sing, write, read poetry, do the violin or guitar or anything. So I feel like making this podcast is actually a good deed for students, because you can get recognized for something that you do behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually what I'm going for. I'm going for students being able to kind of not necessarily step away from academics, because it's important to stay focused on your school, get A's on your exams, ace those things.
Yes,
but,
A's.
but you also need to take breaks in between. So if you have a hobby that you're good at, if you like to go to school and really pay attention and try to get your exams done and do your classes, and then at the end of the day you like to take a break and play your violin or your piano or write some poetry, that's what I want you to come on and show. So we're not always focused on academic stuff. I mean, that's our main focus and what we're trying to do very well, and as college students, but we're also going to have room for a break to show other hobbies, and that's what this podcast is for, so you can show some of the other stuff that you're good at past just getting really good grades in your classes.
All right. So Morgan, think about this podcast that you're starting out. Like, so would you say the students came to inspire you to actually create this podcast? Or, like, as for you, I know you have some talents of your own. So, like, did your own talent inspire you to make it, or what actually inspired you, or was you just put on the spot?
I was inspired a little bit by my own talents. I was also inspired by seeing so many other talents in students. I mean, there's so many students where I know them as being a really good student and being a good classmate, but then you get to know them even better and you learn, hey, they're also a singer, or they're also somebody that does piano recitals or something of that sort. And that's kind of the aspect that I want to show on this podcast, some of the other things that students are good at as well. So I was somewhat inspired by my own talents, but also other talents. And I play some guitar. I'm not super great at it. You've heard me play a little bit, but I'm not
She's
super
something
great
slight.
at it. I played piano. I did piano lessons for over 10 years. And I'll tell you what, piano, I love it, and I enjoy playing the piano. I play by ear. I can play somewhat by notation, not the best at it. But I remember a lot of lessons where I would go and I would pack my piano bag and I would have to put in, the piano lesson book and then the theory and then whatever else we were going to play. And I used to put in the lesson book, and then sometimes I would really forget the theory because I didn't like the theory that much. And then other times I would intentionally forget the theory.
Okay.
And I would come to the piano course and I was like, such a shame. We're going to have to play River Flows in You again. And if you don't know that song, it's a very popular song that people play on the piano. But overall, I did enjoy my time when I was learning piano, and the person who was teaching me taught me very well. But I also enjoyed just doing things of my own, and this is what I want this podcast to be, where people can come on and they can show some of their different talents. People from the college, people from the community are welcome to come on to this podcast and talk about their talents and show them.
All right. Well, honestly, I think that's great that this segment came in your mind and you want to start something new. And I think that's actually good to have at the Thomas Nelson and the community level of college, because just because you go to community college doesn't mean you not as wise as other people. You still have talents behind school, work, and everything else. And, well, coming over to my next question, I know you're just starting and everything, but what sorts of things do we as listeners or people that wants to volunteer to come on the segment would like to see, or what would you expect?
Right. What would they expect coming onto the podcast? Mm-hmm. So kind of speaking to the listeners here, when you come onto this podcast, I am expecting you to come on with some sort of talent that you want to show, whether that, as I mentioned before, poetry, creative writing, whether you're playing an instrument, maybe you're really, really good at gaming or math or something, or maybe you can say the alphabet backwards. You can come and show that talent on the podcast and talk about it. So what you can expect when you come on to this podcast is essentially to show me your talent, and I might ask you some questions about it. I might ask you things like, how did you get into this? When did you start doing this? And you don't necessarily have to be the best person in the world at playing that instrument or writing those poems or writing a book. You just have to be somebody that enjoys that hobby and you're passionate about it, and it's something that you're willing to show people. That's the kind of people that I want to come on to my podcast, people that want to show some of their talents and talk about them and inspire the community in positive ways.
Yes, I definitely agree. I feel like when it comes to student, doing anything that they're actually good in, sometimes it may take them a little push or nudge to get them actually involved in something. Because we as people, okay, we do something, we're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I did that, great. But when other people tell us that we're good at something that we knew we're good at, but we don't feel like we're that confident. So as other people guide us and motivate us to actually doing something that we know we can do, but we're not the best at it. But when you start doing something over and over, then you eventually get better and be like, okay, I got this. Maybe I should. And even for your podcast, if students start coming up here and see more people showing their talents up here, that might motivate them to actually come up here and be like, okay, I should contact this person to I know I'm not the best. Maybe I may be average, but most of the time we have something to give, and during this time, students should just have fun trying to do something different.
Right. And I mean, the good thing about this, I'm kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, you do not have to be the best to come on this podcast. In fact, that's not necessarily what I'm looking for, because if I was, we would be doing America's Got Talent. That's not what this is. This is really just a reach out to the students in the community. I'm looking for you to bring your talent, but also do not forget to bring your inspiration and your passion, because that is what I want you to showcase and talk about on this podcast. It's how passionate you are about whatever hobby or talent that you have. Because I really do think that can inspire other people. And as a college student, it also kind of takes the stress off of that academic work. If you do hobbies and other sorts of talents in the background, you're not solely focusing on your schoolwork. You have a chance to kind of take a break, step back, do something else for a little while. And this podcast will give people a chance to show some of those other talents they have.
Yes, I definitely agree. And thank you for that. Honestly, I think that's all the questions I have for you.
All right. Well, Ayana, I actually want you to be my first talent on this podcast. And I know that you write some poems. I know you're really good at writing poetry. Whether you admit to it or not, I think you are. I think you're really good at writing poetry. And I heard that you actually wrote me a poem to show on this first podcast. So if you would like to, I would like you to read it for us.
Okay. Well, like Morgan said, I don't think I'm the best at poetry. But since you insist, I can go ahead and write. I wrote something up a couple days ago. And honestly, when it comes to this poetry, I can just type something up and go with the flow, and I guess it's okay. But, okay. And basically, when I created this poem, I thought about us living in a time of change and trying to overcome social justice, COVID-19, and everything. And actually, when I created this poem, it was something it was to inspire people to keep on moving and motivate them. We are going to come to a time when we are the America the Great again. Because honestly, when was there a time when America was truly great? So when I created this poem, I thought about COVID-19 and everything else around us. But we as people continue to strive for success and to do better things, because if you're still living, honestly, you got to continue living. You can't let certain events and things stop you from doing what you need to do in life, because honestly, right now, we have this virus out here, and we know we have to do safety precaution stuff, but nobody's truly going to stop their life because of COVID-19 unless the government have anything to say about it. But I mean, at this rate, they already opened stuff back up, so I mean, yeah. But that's a little brief about this poem, and I hope you enjoy it. Like I said, I'm not the best, but yeah, this one just came off the dome. But okay. So, overcoming a world of change. Living in a time where tissue is short, sanitizer is everyone's favorite accessory, and social distancing is required everywhere we go. As we adapt to a global pandemic, we as people are overcoming a world of change. We once overcame the Great Depression, the Reconstruction period, and the Civil War. We as people have been overcoming change since the beginning of the Republic. We as people have no control over what is happening in the world. All we can do is make sure we use our rights to benefit our future. Our future is everything. We have the power to change our beginning. Now we are entering the next phase of change, and we are becoming the world that continues to adapt to a world that seems foreign. Due to the fact at one day in time we couldn't wear masks or hoods in the building without it being seen as rude or disrespectful. Now we as people are overcoming change behind a mask. It's not because we are afraid of our future. We as people are overcoming a world of change, a change that many has conquered and will continue to fight until the end. We as people will not let a global pandemic stop us. We will do everything in our power to be safe. A global pandemic would not have locked indoors because life has gone on. We did not start this world of change, but we as people have the opportunity to change our beginning. It seems if we didn't turn the TV on, we didn't hear anything else except COVID-19 or the man in the White House. We as people are overcoming change because whether you're male or female, your favorite accessory is a mask. A mask for protection, not for fashion, but protection. We live in a time where we as people are afraid to breathe in the grocery store because we didn't know if tomorrow is promised. We as people are overcoming change because a pandemic is taking over our jobs and technology. We as people are overcoming a world of change because we continue to fight until the end. We will not surrender because we are the survivors, and without us, there would be no nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayana. That was a wonderful poem. I mean, the message behind it, it was really beautiful. I like how you included a lot of the modern stuff that's happening right now and things that people are going through. It was really good, and thank you so much for sharing it on this podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, well, this is going to wrap up our first podcast of Jack of One Trade. Again, if you have any talents and you are a listener of this podcast, please reach out to me, and I will be happy to have you on here so you can talk about your talent and be on a podcast. Thank you.